Welcome to the Ask Why podcast, a series of conversations exploring the future of learning and the future of work with experts ranging from professional educators to investors, company builders, and individual learners. The way we learn and the way we work is changing rapidly. Artificial intelligence is automating ever more tasks around us, putting pressure on all of us to reskill and upskill at accelerated rates, while dealing with a level of unprecedented information overload. The education system, built for an age of information scarcity and around a broadcast model of teachers and learners, is simply no longer fit for purpose. But what can we put in its place? If this is a topic you're interested in, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast by searching for #AskWhy in your favorite podcast app, or follow us on YouTube or TikTok and catch the video feed of these conversations, which are happening in VR. Today's guest is Sherry Coutu. Although she undoubtedly needs little introduction, I'll list some of her positions and achievements before letting her take the floor. She started out as a software engineer at Accenture, before becoming a consultant at Coopers & Lybrand. She was the founder and chairman at Interactive Investor, which she floated on the London Stock Exchange. She was an angel investor and an advisory board member of LinkedIn, sits on the board of Raspberry Pi, and invested in many of the brand name companies we take for granted every day. Today, she's the chairperson at WorkFinder and a non-exec director at Pearson. Thanks for being here to start. I was really looking forward to this conversation. You have had a really rich past, and I tried to figure out how to introduce you, which becomes really hard when you've done as much and are doing as many things as you are doing today. But the kind of going from NED at Pearson, Raspberry Pi, investing in LinkedIn, like a bunch of different things, starting out as a software engineer, how would you today describe what you are spending your time on?
I'm focusing on the upskilling and the learning world. And I'm curious about how we help people to acquire the skills that they need in order to bring about the world that we want to live in. It's a balance. If you look at Raspberry Pi, that is making it really easy for people to understand how they create computers rather than just how they use them. If you look at Pearson, it operates across hundreds of countries, and it helps people acquire knowledge. Sometimes it helps them acquire knowledge so they can take a test in English in order to be a doctor in Canada. Sometimes it will help them understand how to code better in Python. If you look at WorkFinder, it helps people acquire the skills that they need in order to do the jobs they want or the jobs that they have better. If you look at the Scale Up Institute, we focus on the skills people need to acquire to help their companies. And if you go up a level at a company, we're looking at how they help their workforce acquire the skills that they need them to have. So at the moment, I'm focusing largely on the acquisition of skills. It's something I've been curious about for a very long time. And it is the number one issue for 90% of the companies on the planet.
That really does appear like you're looking at it from every single angle, basically. Within that, what is the role you perform? What are the functions, the parts that you are working on personally? Is it connecting people? Is it about looking at the fundamental problems? Is it about looking at the economics? Like what are the things that you within those organizations spend your time on?
Well, I have quite different roles in each of those different companies, and so it really depends on which company. Sometimes it is as a director, as a non-exec director, where you are a resource to the people who work full-time for those organizations to help them perhaps see things that they don't yet see, or to help them make decisions that they're needing to make and they want to feel more confident about making. If it's Workfinder, where I'm the executive chair and responsible for product and engineering, it's really getting, really rolling up your sleeves and looking at how you weight an algorithm or the application of an algorithm to create the user experience that you want that user to have. So what I like as a person who has a portfolio is sometimes getting down in the nitty gritty, because I am a software engineer and I derive joy from doing that. And other times I like to help other people who are on a scale up journey to do what they need to do faster and better than they otherwise might do, to give them confidence and to get them from point A to point B faster with greater clarity.
Okay. Forgot to say, by the way, that one of the questions that I'll ask has been generated by ChatGPT, and I'll ask you which one that might have been. So you've had all of these various experiences right now, focusing on the acquisition skills. Within that environment, then, what is one thing that you believe to be true that most people in the industry would disagree with?
I believe that the acquisition of skills and helping people acquire those skills is dramatically more important than a university degree. And I think that a lot of people still believe that a degree is very meaningful, whereas what I see a degree as is imparting certain skills so that an individual can make decisions that allow them to have the impact that they want. I think skills-based AI, although it's where I think the market is going, I don't think that that is generally accepted yet. But I truly believe it to be the future.
And what would you say are the core blockers to it? If those are better ways to evaluate skills or better ways to think about skills, what do you think are the main blockers that are preventing it from being the accepted path today?
I think that there are limitations imposed on businesses, large and small, by the current platforms that they use, which are oriented to, again, what occurred in the past, which may be, a degree. It's like, you need a PhD in data science to work for my company. It's like, okay, but what if they've been a data scientist at Google for 6 years? Does that not count? Because it may not count in the existing platform. So I think there is a limitation in the existing platforms that companies use. And I think that many of the ways in which we acquire knowledge may be disregarded. So for instance, FutureLearn or Coursera, or again, these micro degrees and certificated ways of acquiring knowledge are often disregarded by employers, perhaps because they're unfamiliar with them. So they'll be saying, well, someone has to have a master's degree. It's like, well, actually, if they had several different certificates in what you actually need, that person may be better to help you achieve your goals than, than the other person that you're looking for. Because at the moment, I think companies sometimes look for the wrong things, mainly because they don't know exactly how to decipher the skills that they need to fill the skills gaps in their current teams. You've seen an increase over time of how long it takes to fill roles in companies. And part of that is, again, the specialization of our, I guess, the workforce, and how you find exactly what you're looking for. It's been getting harder and harder and harder to find what you're looking for. And I want to solve that problem, because it's a big problem. It's causing societal issues. It's causing people to have burnout. It's causing retention issues in companies, perhaps who, could have two part-time people, but they're forcing their employees to look for a full-time position when in fact two part-time would probably do, and probably be better for the company and for the people as well.
So there's a lot to unpack in everything kind of you just mentioned. I've been trying to keep track as you were as you were going through. So would it be fair to try and kind of summarize this around that the way people acquire skills today is fundamentally different to the infrastructure of degrees, but the workforce has not found a way to quantify how those skills are now being built up in a way that would help them take advantage of them in the most optimum way? Or am I missing
No, I
something?
think that's I mean, I think that's good. I think that companies may forget how much we learn as we do our role.
Yeah,
And if if I was curious about a subject and I watched 1,000 hours of it on YouTube,
yeah,
how is that taken into consideration by somebody? Because I may have learned a lot during that 1,000 hours of YouTube, but it's not a degree that I would have
yeah,
got from, Cambridge University or Harvard University or somewhere else. And where is that captured, that expertise and skill and interest? Because people need to be interested in what they're doing to enjoy work. And if their interests are, I don't know, something that they can acquire on YouTube or Coursera or
mm,
FutureLearn, how do you capture that? Um,
yeah.
so
It's
there's
the
missing bits. They're pretty important bits. You know people that, spend a lot
yeah,
of time on YouTube, learning how to do something. That lifelong learning is really important to us because we
yeah,
spend time on it. It's important to us and we want to do things that we find interesting. The moment the system seems to be missing the ability to capture that interest and
yeah,
expertise and skill of people, which is causing a whole bunch of friction, which is a very
yeah,
solvable problem, which is why I'm excited because you can solve that problem
yeah. It's just a question of time and resources. Need to get
or
there.
a good algorithm.
And I mean, it does seem fairly simple, right? When you talk about it like this, so that it's still probably quite a few years before we're properly able to solve this. I mean, it does represent societal change as well as just a technological solution. Right? It's one thing to have a solution, another for everyone to accept it and to start using it.
Just another answer to your question of what do I believe that
Yeah.
perhaps the rest of the world doesn't yet.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure that people in 5 years' time will be seeking full-time permanent positions. Um, and in fact, I'm pretty sure that they'll be seeking a braided career where maybe they spend 3 days a week doing one thing and 2 days a week doing something else for another organization. So the assumptions that most organizations make about having a permanently attached workforce of full-time people, I think is completely off. But I'm not sure everybody necessarily agrees with that yet.
Interesting. And you would say that that will play out over the next 5 years already?
I think it's already playing out and is perfectly
Mm.
clear.
And what do you think is driving that?
Well, technological change. It is that. I mean, I think the power has shifted from employers to employees or colleagues.
Hmm.
And if for my own happiness and well-being, it's better if I spend 3 days a week working for this organization and two for that, I should be able to call that shot. And the skills crisis is so acute that people who have these sought after skills will be able to have the ability to deploy those skills where they want, when they want, how they want. If they want to go be a ski bum in the winter months, they will choose not to work in, January, February, March, maybe. Um, but they might work during the rest of the time. But again, that in the old traditional sense might be inconvenient to an employer, but employers will find themselves increasingly flexible because they have to be in order to get the people with the right skills to do what they need their workforce to do.
Okay, so now trying to combine a little bit of both of these, right? So if part of the challenge right now is that skills might be built up but not captured in a way that employers can recognize and find the talent they're looking for, and on the other, the kind of
Yep.
mobility and the type of work that people are looking for might the balance might be coming more in favor of the employee rather than the employer, isn't there somewhat of a balancing force that once the skills are captured again in a way that employers can quantify it, that it should alleviate some of the skill gap, which then pushes back or puts back in balance the employer-employee relationship somewhat?
It should. I mean, absolutely. But I think yes, it should bring it back into balance, and I think it's a solvable. I think that is a solvable issue. But inflexible policies of companies are already dropping very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And that is because the power has changed towards the individual who has those skills.
Yeah, very, very interesting. The trend is absolutely clear. I guess it's the timeline of 5 years of this kind of becoming the norm is not something that I have heard a lot indeed. That'll be very interesting to see how quickly well, it is already happening, but basically how quickly that will accelerate, I guess.
Well, you've seen the acceleration of those trends, which were accelerated by the pandemic. People started working from home a lot more. You've seen and you've heard about the gig economy. Well, the gig economy started with blue collar delivery workers, but nothing to say that it's not going to occur with the white collar knowledge workers as well. And I think I think you're seeing that. You've seen a move from you have to be working in a real office with a real desk, and you have to actually somehow get on a bicycle or a train and travel to that place in order to work. You've seen that change dramatically over the last 1, 3, 5 years because of the pandemic. And I think all of those lead us down a road which ends up with all of us being a lot more flexible and questioning, why do I want to get on a train and go from here to there, whereas I could be in a room with you, perhaps with a contraption on my head. And that can be just as real and just as intense and just as meaningful and just as impactful for both of us and for the organizations we work for than in the historically when when we went into an office and killed 3 hours a day getting to and from the office. Why do we do that? Why is it necessary? Why would we continue to do that after we've seen some of the benefits occur which are aided by technology, such as what we are using today to have this conversation?
Very interesting, and I'm already totally sidetracked based on the questions that I asked. I just found it very interesting to hear a little bit more about those beliefs.
Well, it was the answer to your first question that you said you were going to ask. So
exactly. Yes, but I did not expect to go in this deep afterwards straight away. So, no, hey, this is exactly what it's about. Taking one step back and looking at your personal learning experience throughout your life, if you had to pick one example of what you thought was a great learning experience, what would that be and why?
I did think over the weekend, because I know you were going to ask this question, I think the greatest acceleration of my learning occurred in my second master's degree, which was at a business school on the East Coast of the United States. And they used the Socratic method for teaching. And what I learned there is that the colleagues in the room who are looking at things from diverse, different points of view are well worth listening to. And what you may learn by reading the textbook or the case the night before, and what you conclude having discussed it with 90 people in a forum, usually usually helped by a professor at the front of the room, is very, very different. And that helped me appreciate how you learn through the people around you in solving problems or addressing problems or trying to bring about something else with a team. And I learn better in teams, and I learn better through discussion. And I definitely learn better when there's a problem to solve, because solving problems is joyful if you like solving problems. And there's a lot of problems in our world.
It's a lot for sure. So that personal aspect, that social learning experience, have you seen anything that reproduces that in an effective way in a remote fashion?
I live it every day. I've been living it every day since I graduated from that business school 30 years ago. Um, I think when you come together as a team, well, actually, you and I earlier were trying to help me set up this headset and configure some stuff, and we came together, and you helped me do that. You helped me learn how to overcome an annoying issue. For me, what I love as an entrepreneur is pulling teams together who have, I often regard them as having superpowers. Sometimes the superpowers because they bring a completely different perspective. Sometimes it's a skill, but we bring people together to solve a problem that needs to be solved. And I love that, and I think I do that every minute of every day, um, whatever way you look at it, and that's why I love setting up my own companies if somebody isn't solving a problem that needs to be solved. It's also why I join some companies, because they may have powers to solve problems that I care about deeply that are on the way to being solved. And so, jumping into being part of another organization to solve big issues that I can't solve alone, or it's better to solve as part of a larger organization, is, I think, what we do. I think we
And
all want to have impact. And the way you have impact is, by joining in with other people to have that impact, because as an individual solo person, you have much smaller impact.
and you think that that experience you had on the East Coast Business School that was in person at the time, I imagine, right?
It was in person, but you'd read the case.
Yeah.
You'd then have a study group with real live human beings in a
Mhm.
smaller room. These
Yeah.
days you could do it by VR, and you could probably put together a study group, virtually without being in the same room,
Yeah.
but that was in the same room. And then we would go to a giant classroom or lecture theater, and you would have 100 people. That you might only call on 30 people to speak during that hour and a half, but you would be picking apart a problem and trying to get to an answer of, was this the right decision? But what was being taught was problem solving in a team sense with other people in your community. And that had a profound impact on me. I think I had two other degrees before I went there, and they were quite individualistic. You study this, you write an essay, you then defend your views. It's very different than discovering what the truth is by working in teams and by examining things from a different points of view, so that you together can learn the best way to solve a really complex problem.
Very interesting. Something I wanted to ask you. So you have indeed kind of looked at learning, or you are looking at learning from all these various angles, right? From LinkedIn, Raspberry Pi, Cambridge as well. Even though you're on the remuneration committee, like you've got an insight there. You've got the Founders for Schools. There's the Work Finder. But if you looked at what each of these are adding to um, are adding to the environment, are bringing to the solution of this skills gap, what would you say would be one key insight from each of the, say LinkedIn, Raspberry Pi, Work Finder, at least, in terms of what they're adding and bringing to the table? What would be kind of the key insight that you think is worth everyone knowing about?
Well, I haven't been with LinkedIn as an advisor since they were sold to Microsoft, so that's quite a long time ago. But
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
the lesson of that is, at scale, when you have an end-to-end solution, you can record skills um, that an individual has, and you can also get the community to endorse whether or not they have those. And I think that's what I probably took away from LinkedIn, along with the insights that people choose to change their roles frequently post graduation and pre-retirement. And on the economic graph of an individual, on average, they will hold 25 different jobs and they will pursue 7 different career streams. That's a lot of skills that, move you from being able to do one to the other to the other. But that is what gives us balance and happiness. Sometimes at the beginning of your life, again, if I go to what I learned when I was working closely as a non-exec at Cambridge University on their finance committee, is how people acquire skills and experience very deeply at the start of their career, i.e. in an undergraduate or a master's or a PhD. And that's really important. What I learned from being an angel investor in more than 70 different organizations over the past 30 years is your learning definitely doesn't stop once you've got your first or second or third degree. It accelerates according to the activities that you choose to take part in. Often work activities, but it may not be entirely work activities because you're always learning. And that aspect of, what am I learning to do my job? If a customer asks me to do something and I think we should be able to do that, but we don't know how to do it yet, I'm going to learn how to do that. And the team that you bring together will solve that problem. So I think the theme is, there are skills, there are things that you want to do, and bringing people together to achieve them makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of friction. And as an entrepreneur, I like helping people do things that are worthwhile, usually 10 times better or 100 times better. And I've been really lucky in some of the companies that I've started up and subsequently sold or floated, and some of the companies I've invested in, is using technology and often new technologies to solve really hard problems 10 times better, because you have to solve them 10 times better, or even 100, somewhere between 10 and 100 times better than what exists at the moment, in order to get people to leave their status quo, which they know isn't working, but they don't have a better one yet. And what the lessons that I've learned with the things that I have done and the things that I am doing are, you can really change entire industries with ease if you focus on big problems, which turn into you an opportunity to create a solution that helps people at scale and at massive global scale.
You were talking about how you're excited about solving big problems and then scaling them, being able to scale them out, whatever solution you get to, right? So one of the biggest things in learning that has been proven to really make a difference is personalized learning for quite a while. And one of the biggest things that's been proven in learning to be effective is personal tutoring, right? Is the idea of somebody who helps you based on your context learn in the way that kind of works, or through the context that works for you. Within that, do you actually think that there's a limit to the opportunity to scale personalized learning now that we are getting to the point where technology is able to take this on? What do you think is the right balance between scaling personalized learning and thinking about group learning experiences and kind of a little bit of the broadcast model that we have today? How do you think about the balance between these?
Well, I think if you think about a classroom experience, which you called broadcast, which I agree is an apt term for it, let's say it's a lecture hall and let's say there's 90 people in it. You actually have personalized learning journey with each of those 90 people in that classroom, because each of them with that material will be taking different things away from that interaction. Historically, you were only able to record the broadcast. You couldn't see the personalized, the insights and the ahas with the people who consumed that material. And what you now can do is you can see those ahas and you can suggest the next case study that they might want to read because of an aha or a preference that you will have captured somewhere else on their journey. And I think that is far more powerful than the old way of doing it. And I think more fulfilling for the individual learners as well. Don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah,
whenever we're
absolutely.
teaching or whenever we're learning, we all take different things away from that experience.
So you would say there is a place for a broadcast type environment, and the personalization mostly comes in from the branching out of particular jump off points where everyone gets to dive into what they resonated with and what they want to explore from there. The biggest leverage point is to look at the various jumping off points and what everyone resonated with in order to help develop the various topics more deeply based on what kind of appealed to them.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you've gone to a lecture maybe with 4 or 5 friends before, or a play, and had a discussion afterwards about what you took away from that, and found that you all took slightly different things away from that. When we interact with a piece of learning material, we come there for a reason, and we may all show up in that classroom for different reasons, trying to take insights that we can apply later in different aspects. And I don't think that has changed. I think the ability to capture it and allow someone to pursue things that they're interested in is much greater.
So what is one question you have today that you wish you had an answer to?
I know you asked me that before. I would like to know whether or not my prediction of 5 years, how far off that is. Is it going to happen in 2 to 3 years, or is it going to happen in 10 years?
Which one of the 5 years are you talking about here? Are you talking about the kind of future of work, gig economy, how people shift their working behaviors? Is that the one that you are most interested in figuring out?
Yeah, that people will
timeline.
that people will be choosing to not work full time at one organization, and that they may choose to spend units of time at several organizations. And I think companies will have to cope with that. I'm just wondering if that's going to be 100% in 5 years' time, is what my opening statement was. I think it's already at 50%. Will it reach 100% in 5 years, as I said, or 10 years, or 2 to 3 years? And it's anyone's guess. I think it's coming like a freight train, and I think it's perfectly clear. I think it will be accelerated by organizations like Digital Boost, and like Workfinder, and like some of the things that Pearson's doing, and Cambridge University, every learning institution is contributing to this. Will it come about faster than 5 years or slower is something I definitely wish that I knew.
So we will wrap up there. Thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed it. Now that we're fully set up, maybe we can even do this some other time to dive into the other 50 questions that I had. Either way, I really enjoyed it, and I'm so thankful for the time already that you put into this, and the work that you perform to try and make a difference here. Obviously, I'm trying to spend my own time doing something similar, moving the needle here, but it's one of the world's biggest problems right in front of us. So thank you.
It's great. Well, it's my pleasure, and it's been great getting to know you a little bit, and I love what you're doing, and I think exploring this media is also fun, and will have a deep impact in the world of learning and the acquisition of learning and skills and lessons. So well done for everything that you're doing to help us all understand that. So thank you.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
I'm your host, Joshua Vola, CEO at Mindstone, and I hope today's conversation shed light on at least some of the problems we're facing. If you thought today's conversation was interesting, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast by searching for #AskWhy in your favorite podcast app, or follow us on YouTube or TikTok and catch the video feed of these conversations, which are happening in VR.